Hey guys, Crypto here with a new market update. First off, Merry Christmas to those who celebrate and Happy Holidays to everyone else. This video is going to be a talk on, of course, Bitcoin, but also some of the major alts that we like to focus on and cover. CRV, CVX, we'll cover XRP, we'll cover HBAR, and we'll cover maybe some other alts that I don't necessarily hold myself, but that are alts of interest in context of where the market is headed. Quick announcement before we jump into the charts. Again, we have been trying to give away this MacBook Pro for a while now. A new winner was chosen on December 3rd. It's been about 3 weeks, and this winner with a user ID of 226135 still hasn't claimed the MacBook Pro. So as I've said previously, until someone claims this, we're going to keep choosing new winners. So a new winner for the MacBook Pro will be chosen probably on January 1st of next year, so in less than a week. So look out for that, guys. If you are signed up for Woo with my ref link, then you're automatically entered to win a potential MacBook Pro here and various other prizes. In addition to this, which will be announced again January 1st, we also have the current promotion from Woo. And this promotion ends on December 28th, which means that you still have a couple of days left to get in on it. Basically, if you haven't yet signed up for Woo under my ref link, you can do so using the link, which is the pinned tweet on my Twitter, and you can get up to $500 worth of Woo tokens when you register a new account and follow the directions, which are right here, again, linked in the pinned tweet on my Twitter. In addition to that, I'm throwing in an additional $2,000, $500 each to 4 referees to kind of sweeten the deal. And again, this is an end of the year bonus. How you get entered to win this potentially is you just need to be signed up to Woo using my ref link, and you need to have deposited at least $100 of crypto into your account. If you've done that anytime in the past, 4 of you will win those $500 each, and that will again be announced along with the new winner for the MacBook Pro on January 1st. So keep an eye out on my Twitter. Again, guys, if you are new to my account, I do these types of giveaways all the time. Just a bonus for supporting me and using my ref link on my partner exchanges, both Woo and Bybit. So if you haven't yet signed up under my ref links and you're looking for an exchange to use, these are my partnered exchanges and you can get something back potentially. So if you're looking to sign up for a exchange and you would like to support me at the same time, you can sign up to Woo using my ref link, again, in my pinned tweet, and also to my Bybit ref links. And I'll be doing these periodic giveaways constantly. In fact, I have another one planned for the new year, which will kick off probably in January, and we'll be giving away thousands of dollars to my referees. And that one will be probably for both Bybit and Woo referees. So again, if you haven't signed up using my ref links, the link is in the YouTube description for this video. It is also in my pinned tweet for Twitter. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the charts. So we'll start off with Bitcoin, and as usual, guys, Bitcoin is what we're tracking right now to kind of gauge the general direction of the market. There may be periods where this is not the case, but typically where Bitcoin goes, other coins follow. And so a bullish Bitcoin generally means a bullish alt-like situation, and a bearish Bitcoin generally means bearish alts. There's going to be periods of time where we see consolidation on Bitcoin, and that leads to very aggressive alt pumps. We're kind of in that market situation at this period of time where Bitcoin's comfortably trading above 70K. We're now at 99K. And so we're in that market context where we could get periods of sideways action, and Bitcoin and alts may start running. But let's just go ahead and jump into Bitcoin first. So zooming out a little bit to get you guys an idea of where we're at on the higher time frame, we are currently working on the 5th and final wave to the upside to complete this cycle that started, depending on what scale you're looking at, either back in 2018 for the macro cycle, the larger 5-wave move, which we're now working on the final 5th wave of, and that's here labeled in orange. Again, that's the initial first impulsive wave of this larger cycle. Started off in 2018 with the first wave here. We then got a wave 2 correction, a wave 3, a very long and large wave 4, and then we're now working on the final 5th. So this final 5th, in my opinion, is kind of the culmination of 6 to 7 years of price action, or kind of the culmination of a 6 to 7 year secular bull market. And we can go and talk about what happened prior to that. We'll leave that for another video. I've talked about it in the past already too, so those who follow my content should be familiar. For those who haven't, we'll touch on it later. For now, though, this is kind of the context of where we're at, working on this larger 5th wave. And within this larger 5th wave, we've now completed 4 out of 5 waves, it seems like, right? So within that larger 5th wave, we now have the first wave completed here, second wave, third wave, fourth wave, and it looks that we are currently now working on that 5th wave. So we're on the final leg of, in my opinion, the cycle that started back here in 2018 at 3K Bitcoin. Within this final 5th wave, again, the idea is that if this final 5th leg up has started, which at this point it seems like it has, it should be rather aggressive. Okay, we've already talked about this in the past, but the idea is that this fifth wave should generally be a blow off top, even more aggressive than the prior third, and that one was more aggressive than the first. So we're looking for kind of an angle of ascent that's even more aggressive than the prior waves, right? Our first wave one, that was kind of the angle, 35-degree angle. Our wave 3 got even more steep and aggressive, and that was about a 62-degree angle. And this final fifth wave should then be even more aggressive than this 62-degree angle, which looks to be the case, right? So 17-degree, 40-degree, now 66-degree. And we expect that this angle of ascent essentially continues till our peak, wherever that may be. Now, we could have a situation where, like over here in this case, we were moving up at a 62-degree angle, then we got this larger correction, and that pushed things off a bit, and then we went up at a 46-degree angle. You can see the subwave here went up at a 69-degree angle. So when I talk about the angle of ascent, you'll notice here that even in these waves, the initial waves are not as aggressive, and as we go up, these waves get even more aggressive in terms of subwaves than the prior subwaves. So you had a subwave 1, subwave 2, subwave 3, subwave 4, and then the most aggressive subwave 5, then you had the wave 2 correction. Once again, we had a kind of sideways 1, 2, 3, 4, and then again the most aggressive fifth subwave. So you're seeing, even in the smaller subwaves of these prior waves, that the fifth subwave tends to be the most aggressive to the upside in terms of angle of ascent. So the fifth subwave of this larger third wave went up at a 70-degree angle, right? So once again, we're expecting this to get just essentially more parabolic as we move up, and that's what a parabolic blow off top means. That's what a parabolic advance implies, a rate of ascent that increases at an increasing rate until the top, right? So if we're currently starting off at what we see here as a 67-degree angle, right? You can see even here, we got up to a 70-degree angle. So this should only get more steep, right? We don't know when this base or this corrective structure will end, but whenever it does, we might start seeing even more aggressive expansion to the upside. And all this is to say, and the point that I want to get across is that if this truly is the fifth wave that has started here, then our top will come, I think, a lot sooner than most are expecting, because the aggression with which we move to the upside, it should be very aggressive, which means that it shouldn't take as long as prior moves took. So we could see this move up very aggressively. And the longer that we take down here to move up, that means the higher we're going to go. So again, I've previously said above 100K, which we're now at. 150K, I think, is realistic based on what we've seen so far. But we could push up to 200. We could even push up to 250, with my absolute max for the cycle being 300. I don't think we'll get close to 300, but we could see 200, 220, etc. So it all just depends on how aggressive we move up and the amount of time we take to move up. The longer that we take to finish off this move, the higher we're going to go. The faster that we go up, the less time it's going to take. So if we seem to be dragging out here, it just means that we're going to be heading higher. So don't take this relatively slow chop here as a sign of weakness. That just gives us more basing for the next leg to the upside, which should be then even more aggressive. So again, guys, the same way that we look and are able to identify the subwaves with each of these larger waves, the 5-wave subwave here, the 5-wave subwaves here, the 5-wave subwaves even in these smaller moves here, the same way we're able to do that, ideally we can identify them in this final fifth of the fifth as well, and that will give us a better clue as to when this move is going to end. Now, as you guys are very much aware, the initial subwave movement off of these lows confused me as well, so I'm hoping that it will be as clear as it was in instances past, especially in this third subwave. Even like the initial move off of here confused me as well. So it was a little bit tricky. We managed to catch the long somewhere down here after the breakout, shortly after the breakout, but it wasn't as clear structurally in terms of like impulsive movement until we got higher. And really, this move here was actually very, very clear in terms of subwave structure, even on lower time frames than what we're looking at here. And we got a very clear 5-wave move, which at the time we were able to identify at 40K, and we were able to ride that up to 60K plus because it was just very clear. So I'm hoping that we get some clear PA as we move up here to further clarify where we are at in this 5-wave structure to the upside. My best guess at the moment in terms of where we are structurally in terms of the 5-wave move to the upside, my best guess at the moment is that we're working on the first subwave here of 5 of this fifth. I've mapped it out sort of like this here. Let me just show you guys real quick. And we'll know more about this in the coming days. This will get more clear as PA develops here. So the first is that we have subwave 1 here, subwave 2, and then a 3, and then a wave 4 triangle and a 5. And so in this case, it would look something like this, where our first subwave has already completed right here. The first subwave of 5, meaning this first move up, this first impulse completed here, and we're working on that subwave 2 correction right now before the third, the fourth, and then the final fifth of the fifth of the fifth. This is the end. This is the blow off top. So that's one way to count it here. And if that's the case, then our first impulse ended right here, and we're now working on a subwave 2 correction, which as you can see has basically been sideways chop, which is good. And we're waiting for kind of the next low time frame impulse to form to indicate the start of this larger third wave to the upside, which the first wave, if this is correct, took us from 58 to 103, was a $50,000 move. We'd expect this third wave to be a multiple of that. So off of these lows, if we were to start here, we're looking at 150K plus just for this third wave. So actually lines up quite well. 150K plus for the third wave, fourth, and then the final fifth. With that being said, this is kind of the most bullish scenario that we have here. We'll go down to the lower time frames and I'll show you guys what I'm seeing here. So we don't have confirmation yet. We don't have a full 5-wave move, but we do have on the lowest of time frames some pretty clear impulsive looking PA off of these lows. So one argument to be made is that this could be the start of the next 5-wave move to the upside. And if that's the case, then that means that our bottom was in at 92.3K and we don't expect to see lower at this time. Okay, so this is local invalidation, assuming that we've started the next subwave to the upside. And remember, if this really is the start of the fifth wave, if we really have begun the move to the upside, which looks quite likely at this point in time, then remember, this needs to be a very aggressive move to the upside, right? So do not be surprised if this really is the bottom, right? If this bottom here at 92K did mark our low and we just start moving up aggressively, okay? And if that's the case, then we don't expect to lose 92.3K. And also in the coming hours, and this video will probably be published in about 24 hours, so this PA will have developed by then. What you're looking for is you're looking for another straight up impulsive movement to complete a potential 5-wave leg to the upside. At that point, you have a potential entry on a pullback into the green zone for continuation, right? But we're looking to see if we can get another impulse to complete a 5-legged move off the bottom, which again is the exact same thing in the exact same way that we identified the bottom here at 38K and caught a beautiful long off of these levels. We identified the 5-wave move, we longed the retracement, and the rest is history. So we're just doing the same thing here, and we have the makings of a potential 5-wave move, but we don't yet have completion yet. We're almost there. If we get another push up in the time that this is recorded, watch out for that. So that being said, that's the first argument that we've now completed the first wave. This was the wave 2 correction, and we're now beginning our third wave. This is the most bullish scenario, and it implies that we will see aggressive expansion here as soon as January, as soon as the next couple of weeks. Before you know, we'll probably be pushing upwards of 120 to 130K in the coming weeks and months if this is the case, okay? But the alternate is that in the rare situation, and I'm saying rare because we cannot rule things out at this point in time. Let's say that we either don't make a lower time frame impulse here. You can see that we're kind of pushing above the highs of the third wave here, but it's really choppy right now. Let's say we just go like this. We just kind of push up a little bit here and then we reject, right? So then we don't quite have a 5-legged move to the upside. We have a 3-legged move, another 3-legged move down. That's corrective, and that implies that this third wave may not have started yet, right? And we get confirmation of that on a break below 92.3K. In that case, it implies that this next third leg or the next major impulse to the upside isn't yet ready to take off, and we have to be more patient, and we could be getting a larger corrective structure here. If we manage to correct back down to 70K at this point, then there's some bigger implications. It's still possible this is the first wave 1, this is the wave 2, but such a deep wave 2 at this stage of the cycle where we should be getting ready to go parabolic would more likely than not indicate to me that this 5th wave up hasn't started, and in that case I would expect some consolidation here, and then I would expect that aggressive 5th wave. The idea would be we had a corrective move here, corrective move here, corrective move here to finish it off, and then we got the real impulse. Point being that at this stage of the cycle, if we are seeing the 5th wave already, then the ascent should be very aggressive and we should not get such deep pullbacks, and it should not take so long. Because again, the rate of ascension here should be expected to increase, not decrease, right? So the idea is that if all of a sudden we just consolidate here and start chopping and going sideways, that angle that we were looking at, that angle that we're expecting if the 5th wave has begun, would not be present, right? Instead, what we would have is an angle that's 34 degrees, even less than the initial impulse. So this sort of price action would simply mean that this 5th leg up has not yet started. And the implications are, again, that when it does start, it will be very aggressive, and the bigger this base is, the higher we go. So if we manage, or if we happen to get, another couple of months of consolidation here without really breaking out, again, don't take it as a sign of weakness. It just means that the real move up, the final blow off top, hasn't yet begun, and when it does, it will be even more aggressive than depicted here, right? Again, still not exceeding 300K. That's a hard cap for this cycle, but we'll be even more aggressive and move up even faster than we are now. I think this, based on everything that I'm seeing, is a little bit less likely of a scenario right now. I think the more likely scenario is that at this stage, this 5th wave has begun. But again, we'll get further confirmation here in the coming days on these lower time frames. And based on what we see, we can just adjust accordingly. But everything that I say in this video moving forward now is going to be based on the assumption that the 5th wave to the upside on Bitcoin has begun. The 5th of the 5th, I should say, has begun. It's going to be based on the assumption that we are not going to see 72K again. I won't rule this out. I'll keep it in the back pocket as a potential bearish scenario, but it's less likely in my opinion. So we'll keep everything in the context of Bitcoin likely consolidating here before the next rip to the upside. And the reason that I say this is because in almost no circumstances, or I should say in a very rare amount of circumstances, is there a situation where Bitcoin bleeds down to 70K, which is a 30% drop nearly, and alts don't get affected. Okay, so everything that I talk about in this video moving forward, we're going to move on to alts here shortly. Everything that I talk about for these alts is in the context of Bitcoin not melting down to 70K. If Bitcoin melts down to 70K, these alts are probably going to break some key levels of support as well and come down. Okay, I'm going to assume right now, just for the sake of explaining these things, that Bitcoin is going to hold somewhere around 80 to 90K. With that assumption, we're going to talk about the altcoin charts, okay? Because they're all kind of sitting at either key levels of resistance or key levels of support. But if Bitcoin melts down 30%, they're all going to take a hit regardless of what the TA looks like or regardless of where these support levels are. Again, keep an eye for Bitcoin summary. It looks like our 5th wave has started. If that's the case, we should move up pretty aggressively. If that's not the case, we may get a deeper pullback that may consolidate for a couple more months. But assuming this is the case, we could be on the verge of starting the impulse now. Breaking below 92.3K invalidates that idea and means that we may be in for some further chop, but as long as we hold above it, this green zone would make for a good trade entry to continue on to new all-time highs. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our altcoins. And I'll start off with XRP. XRP, the reason I'm starting off with it is I do think that it is probably the most bullish altcoin in the space right now in terms of the way the chart looks. XRP is one of the few coins right now that is printing a very clear bullish impulsive structure on lower time frames, on higher time frames, on every time frame, and very easily cleanly identifiable. We talked about how, Bitcoin on the recent rise wasn't as clean, and I showed you guys an example of very clean price action on Bitcoin, impulsive price action from 30 to 40K. That's kind of what we're seeing here on XRP, is that very clean price action that shows impulsive price movement. You can see it here off of these lows, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with very strong impulsive price action, very clear subdivisions. Even on this 5th wave, we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is kind of what I mean by clear impulsive price action, where there's not really much doubt about what we're seeing. So XRP is one of the only alts right now that is doing that. Even alts that are pumping right now, there's a lot of alts that are pumping but are not showing this type of momentum, this type of clear impulsive price action. And again, this is kind of the nuance between price moving up and price moving up in a very clearly impulsive manner, which again on Twitter, a lot of people kind of mix the two together. They think that any move up is an impulsive move, but the word impulse is actually the Elliott wave term. And for Elliott wave impulses to be valid, they need to meet certain criteria. And one of those is clear 5-wave subdivisions. So again, this is like what a true impulse looks like. And so XRP is one of the only few alts right now that is showing this type of price action, which is why I'm super bullish on it. But for XRP specifically, we identified a clean 5-wave move off of 50 cents up to $1.62. That was the first wave of 5, in my opinion. We got this sideways correction that was pretty weak, relatively weak, I should say. Actually, this is on log scale. So if I take it off a log, it looks a little bit more drastic. And this is actually a 20% move down. I guess it's still relatively weak in terms of corrections. 20% is not bad at all. But we had a 20% correction, then we printed another impulsive move to the upside, right? So now we have the first wave started off of 0.50. The third wave, which we're in now, I think, started off of 1.28. And within this third wave, and this is where it gets kind of exciting, within this third wave, we've just completed the first wave of 5. So we still have this to go for the third wave. Then we get the larger fourth wave. And then we get the larger 5th wave to the upside. Now, again, this is on log scale. I'm not trying to say that I think we're going to go to 13 because I think we're going higher than 13. But how big will these waves be? Well, the third subwave is usually larger than the first. So if we're looking at $1.30 to $2.95, that's $1.60. This third wave should be at least a $2 move. So if we're starting it off of $2.28, this should take us at least to new all-time highs at $4 plus. Then we get a wave 4 consolidation. Then the 5th of this larger third, then we have a 4th wave, then we have the final 5th of the 5th. So XRP just looks fantastic here. If this is all valid, then really we shouldn't go back below 129. We can technically go back below these lows here at 191 without breaking any sort of higher time frame structure, because again, this is where people kind of get confused with how deep a correction can go. The point is we started a low time frame impulse, or you can call it a low time frame uptrend off of 126, a series of higher highs and higher lows. Therefore, anything that follows after, as long as it doesn't breach the origin of that series of higher highs and higher lows, it is technically a larger higher low on a higher time frame. So we have a higher low here. As long as this doesn't go below that, that's another higher low. So technically, yeah, we can go back below 190 and it doesn't affect the chart in a negative way on the higher time frames. Realistically though, I think there's a decent chance that we're going to hold above this green zone here. And again, this goes back to when I said that this is valid as long as Bitcoin doesn't melt 30%, right? If Bitcoin melts down to 70Ks, then we probably break these lows here. I still think that we would hold above 129, but maybe we dip into this cluster of consolidation here and then go up, right? And this again assumes that Bitcoin breaks down to 70K. But like I said, we're moving onto these alts with the assumption that Bitcoin doesn't do that. And so in that assumption, I think it's pretty likely that we may hold these lows here. I'll show you guys here the XRP Bitcoin chart. And this is why I think that we may hold those lows, because the XRP Bitcoin chart looks fantastic here. We have, again, a very clear impulsive move on the XRP Bitcoin chart, just like we had on the USD chart. We have a nice, beautiful base formed here with a low, a lower low, a higher low. And so this is a accumulation bottom pattern that we're quite familiar with. And whenever we get this accumulation bottom pattern, it gives us local invalidation levels, and we expect buyers to step in and maintain these series of higher lows that we're printing. If this is the case, then we shouldn't go much lower than these range lows here before the next impulse or next strong move to the upside begins, right? So for example, just to give you guys an idea of how I'll look at these things and kind of make sense of this with a USD chart, you can measure the distance between current price and the expected low. That's about a 6% drop. So assuming that Bitcoin is going to kind of go sideways here, right? Assuming Bitcoin's not going to make a violent move down to 70K and it just kind of chops around, then a 7% drop on XRP BTC gives us something to work with on the USD pairing. We can measure a 7% move down, and we can see that that doesn't take us lower than the blue zone here, right? Which is about $2 on XRP. So for XRP USD to drop down to these lows here, that would be an 18% drop. And with Bitcoin being relatively stable, we would need a similar drop on the Bitcoin pairing, which takes us far below these lows. And again, that's not likely to happen. So if we're going to find support here, then the USD pairing likely doesn't go below these levels unless Bitcoin dumps significantly from current levels. And that's how we analyze the charts together. And that's why I say that I think there's a decent chance that we're going to hold above 190, assuming Bitcoin doesn't tank, right? So with that in mind, guys, I do think XRP here is gearing up for that next impulse to the upside following the one that started off of 128. Again, this next initial impulse to the upside should be, this is 128 to 280. That's $1.60. Should take us to $4 plus and new all-time highs. The exciting thing is that would be just a third subwave of a larger third wave move that ultimately should take us to $5 plus. And by the time that we're gearing up for this final fifth wave, I would imagine that we would have hit double digits at that point, and this fifth wave will take us to the blow off top or the final top of $20 to $30, as I've previously said in my interview with Crypto Insight UK. Give them a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, or check out the video if you want to. We talked about XRP to $20 to $30 and why that was reasonable in my opinion. I made the argument, I explained it with charts. We looked at XRP Bitcoin, XRP Ethereum, and XRP USD, and I think it's very logical and very reasonable. Many people agree with me after watching the video. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. But again, structurally, this is just the start of a much larger move to the upside that should take us to double digits, and in my eyes, somewhere above $20. With that being said, that covers XRP, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to CRV. All right, guys, so we will start with a higher time frame like overview on CRV, and I covered this in my last YouTube video as well, talking about the higher time frames on CRV and talking about how we look for, areas or levels of confirmation. And this level is a level we outlined in the last video, this monthly supply level, and you can see we're currently trading above it, which is a great sign. And as I said in the last video, the monthly close here will be important. In 6 days, this candle will close. If it closes above the wicks here, that's incredibly bullish. If it closes within this zone here, which is anywhere from 88 cents to 56 cents, that's bullish, but not as bullish as closing above this zone. And if we close back below 69 cents on the monthly, it doesn't look so hot. Again, in terms of people asking me, can we pull back down to 30 to 40 cents? Again, if Bitcoin does drop to $72,000, give or take, then yes, we could see a deeper pullback on CRV down to this cluster right here, which I'll make in orange. And this is the next logical area of support if we fail to get past this monthly supply. So if the monthly closes and we reject here, or if Bitcoin dumps to low 70Ks, then it's likely that CRV itself pulls back to the orange zone. The orange zone is from 38 cents to 55 cents, okay? But assuming that Bitcoin doesn't see such a drop, assuming that Bitcoin holds the level that we're at now, we can kind of rule this area out, okay? And in that case, what we'd expect is that we close somewhere above monthly supply, essentially flip it to support, and then continue up to the next area of resistance at around $2. Everything that we're seeing is on our way to prior all-time highs at $7, and ultimately, like XRP, to double digits of 10 plus, potentially 20 plus, okay? So now that we've seen this on the higher time frames and we've identified the higher time frame levels, we'll go down to the lower time frames and take a look at what we're seeing here in the lower time frames. that kind of makes me even more bullish on a favorable monthly close here. In the lower time frames, what we can see here, some very beautiful PA. We broke above that monthly level. You can see a beautiful retest of the monthly level right here. And this is exactly why these levels are so important and so significant. It's crazy how you can go to the monthly chart, you can identify this key level here, and on the lower time frames, the interactions with this level are so clean. I mean, again, this is the monthly level here. We marked off this monthly candle, and you can go down here to the lower time frames and you can just see, look at that beautiful rejection on the first test of the monthly level that then led to a 20% drop. Then we broke through the monthly level, traded above it, retested it. That then led to a 40% pump. So you can see the reactions off of this monthly level are so clean. This is literally proof like that TA works. This is why we use it, because you can't get these types of reactions off of anything else. Like, this tells us very clearly where resistance is, where support is. When resistance levels get broken, they flip to support. And this is a beautiful textbook example of exactly that phenomenon happening right here, right? Visible for everyone to see. So again, what we're seeing now, just like we saw in XRP, we're seeing potential for that triple tap base forming again. And where is it forming? On top of prior monthly resistance, which is now acting as support, okay? So very, very bullish chart here on CRV. We've essentially flipped this monthly level and we're now turning it into support. I should say it's now acting as active support. And so that is why I changed this to green, okay? Now we get further confirmation on the monthly close in 6 days. If we're trading above this, then it's successfully been flipped on the monthly time frame on which it exists into an area of support. Now what I'm looking at in lower time frames, you go to the daily chart, you can see this little order block before this breakdown into now support that we bounced from. This area then on any retest should then act as resistance, right? It's the area that we broke down from. So now we have this lower time frame level acting as resistance. We have this higher time frame level acting as support. And the next major area of resistance is $1.80 to $2. And so in the lower time frames now, what we're looking at is it's a battle between this area of resistance and this area of support. And the idea is that if this monthly zone is going to hold, now that we've put in a deep wick into it and it's held, we should expect to see a higher low form here for continuation of the upside. So now we have a battle between essentially the larger green zone and the smaller red zone. And in between that, we have this area in orange that I've marked off that I think will act as support. So now what I'm looking for is a test of that orange zone probably. And if Bitcoin doesn't break down violently, and if CRV is as bullish as I think it is, then I think this area holds for a higher low. And then we break out of this lower time frame resistance, head to the range highs, and then ultimately head to the $2 zone where we find our next area of resistance. Now, this is from these lows a full 120% move to the upside, which is beautiful to see. So yeah, this is not weakness on CRV. This is flipping a very key area of resistance into support intra-month. And I think once we confirm the monthly close, we will then shoot up to the next major area of resistance, which will give us a nice 100% move to the upside. CRV BTC looking very similar. Okay, once again, we have a little range formed here. We have a local area of demand formed here at the range lows. Thinking a test of the range lows makes sense before we head to the range highs. The next area of resistance is going to be this dotted green line, which is this historically significant low. So somewhere between the next major area of resistance and the level that I marked off above that. And I marked this level off at some higher time frame level, but we'll mark off this as quarterly supply. You have a gap here and you have a wick. So this area right here should act as resistance. So we have a move from the range lows up to somewhere around here, which is again 120% move to the upside. So when you get that confluence, that's what we're looking for, a confluent area of resistance on the USD pairing and on the Bitcoin pairing. That tells us that this may act as an area for us to take a pause, take a breather, possibly consolidate longer before ripping through. So again, guys, can we go down to 50 cents again? Can we go down to 40 cents? Possibly, but that's under the assumption that Bitcoin breaks down. Without a Bitcoin breakdown, it looks to me like we are forming a beautiful base here in the lower time frames. And if it holds, then we should quickly start rising up for the next leg to $2 plus in the coming weeks, okay? So on CVX, once again, we have a clean range formed here. We had a deviation below the range lows. We were then targeting the range highs. We hit the range highs. We took this high here. We failed to take this high here. And once these highs are cleared, the next area of resistance is up here at 15 bucks. We're currently trading at 5. So after taking these highs of the range, we came back down. We didn't quite get to the mid-range. We retested this local area of demand, as you can see. First, we tested the range highs, bounced off of them, but then we melted down to this area of demand, bounced off of that. And now I think that we could be putting in another lower time frame triple tap like we saw with CRV just now. And that looks something like this. It's almost the same setup, almost identical to CRV. So we have range highs, range lows. We have a local area of demand formed here, right here at the range lows, beautiful. And we have the upside target. So once again, if you're looking for entries on CVX here, this is like the ideal entry. And again, this all assumes Bitcoin holds in the 80s to 90s. But if it does, as long as it does, then we're looking at potentially a test of green, and then continuation to the range highs at $8. And then ideally that kind of initiates our breakout to the $15 zone, okay? So that's CVX, pretty self-explanatory. Let's quickly take a look at CRV XRP. We had this little low time frame range here. And this chart is interesting because we already know how bullish XRP is, as I previously explained to you guys. This chart is CRV against XRP, and if we treat it like any normal chart, what we have here is a range. We've deviated below the range lows. We've now reclaimed it. This area is acting as support. We're looking for a move to the range highs. This is important because oftentimes in crypto, we compare alts to the leader, right? Which is typically why we compare alts to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is generally known as the leader. Sometimes we'll check alts against Ethereum pairings because Ethereum's kind of the second in command, or usually was. Again, with XRP currently being the leader, with XRP being the one that's showing that very impulsive movement, I think it makes sense to compare certain coins to XRP, because if XRP is the leader, we want to know if our coin is going to outperform the leader or if it's going to underperform the leader. So that's why I brought this chart up to begin with, and I talked about this prior to going on vacation. We were trading right about here, so we're looking for a dip into the green zone and then a bounce to the upside. We got that bounce. I think we may come back down to retest orange, right? So this again looks just like the other CRV charts as well, the CRV chart and the CVX chart with that little dip down and then continuation of the range highs. Now, what's interesting though is once we get to these range highs, two things could happen here, and I'll tell you which one I think is more likely. One is CRV's so bullish that it continues to outperform. Maybe it comes back down the range highs, chops here for a bit, and then breaks out against XRP. I find this a little bit tricky to imagine happening because of how bullish XRP is in and of itself. So this to me is a little bit less likely at the moment, because even CRV, while it is moving up, is not showing clear impulsive price action like XRP is. Again, that's something that adds on to how bullish I am on XRP. That impulsive price action, like you don't see those types of moves on CRV. We are moving up, right? But you can just look at this chart and you can't make out clear subdivisions on this because you don't have them. It's pretty choppy, overlapping price action. So it's bullish and we're moving up, but we're not moving up with as much momentum as XRP has, which can be clearly seen by how smooth these moves to the upside are. So going back to the CRV XRP chart, what that means is while we may see some initial short to midterm outperformance to the upside, when we get to the range highs, we could technically then melt back down to the range lows against XRP. And again, this doesn't mean that CRV drops in USD value. It could mean that CRV stalls out. Maybe this is our push to $2 and then CRV consolidates there while XRP continues to rip because it's printing impulsive price action. And if XRP is ripping to the upside while CRV is chopping between $1.50 to $2, then we could see this bleed back down, okay? So this is to say that for those that are interested in learning how we analyze these charts, this chart is worth keeping an eye on. And then for those asking me, well, if CRV is going to outperform XRP by 40 to 50%, should I swap my XRP for CRV? And here's the thing. If you're an active trader, you can consider doing that. If you're not a professional trader, just hold both, because even if that was to be the case, if and when CRV reaches that 40 to 50% outperformance, there's a chance that it could bleed all the way back down, right? There's a chance it just goes up. There's a chance it could bleed all the way back down. We don't know what's going to happen, and we'll only know as price action develops. And so if you're not a professional trader and you can't understand this chart yourself, or you wouldn't have come to this conclusion on your own, then don't try and trade it, because you're probably better off just holding both and enjoying the ride on both, because they're both going to do spectacularly well in the coming months, in my opinion. So again, this is more for those who are actively trading. We're trying to learn how to actively trade. We're trying to understand how I interpret these charts. That's what this explanation is for. So yeah, we may see a burst of outperformance on CRV, the tune of 40, 50, 60% against XRP. And that could be while XRP is basically continuing to consolidate here in this chop. But once that outperformance ends, we could see then a reversion back to the downside on this CRV versus XRP pairing, as XRP then breaks out of this consolidation, heads up for its next impulsive move to the upside, okay? Let's now go on to HBAR. Kind of the same situation we had with CRV, where we have, once again, this area of monthly supply. So again, we're looking for that monthly close above this zone. That's a very bullish sign, because this is a major area that we broke down from. This is the point of breakdown. Reclaiming it means that we then target the highs at 59, which is new all-time highs, and then we obviously are in price discovery, and then we head for $1 plus. So clearing this zone on the monthly time frame is important for HBAR. Right now, we look to be doing that in the lower time frames because we are trading above it. But you'll notice here that the base isn't quite as clean as the base that we have on CRV. You can see here that, I mean, we are basing, but we like to see ideally like a very clean, what we call like a triple tap, which is a low, a lower low, and a higher low. The Bitcoin pairing tells us that we might get a little bit of a deeper pullback here on HBAR. We can see off the bottom potentially like a 5-wave move off the bottom, and if that's the case, then we could pull back deeper without it being an issue for a wave 2. But here's the thing. Let's take a look at the HBAR Bitcoin pairing, and this is where it pays to pay attention to the different pairings. Unlike the CRV Bitcoin pairing, which, as I showed you guys, was trading above major resistance and turning it into support, the HBAR Bitcoin pairing is actually currently trading inside, or even you can say under, a major area of resistance or supply. And we can see here that this area is a major area of supply, and we're currently battling it. We're not trading above it like we are at CRV. We're not trading above it like we are on the HBAR USD pairing. On the HBAR Bitcoin pairing, we're currently trading under it. It's currently technically rejecting this area of resistance. And so what this tells us is that if we can't get past here, that HBAR USD may need to consolidate a bit longer before the next leg. It may need to pull back a bit more before the next leg until we can clear this area of resistance. I think it looks fantastic, but I can't rule out a potential larger pullback on HBAR here, which would be healthy, nothing to be concerned about. But until we get above this red zone, it's possible that we could see, a little bit of a bleed here. The next area of demand is this zone here, so that we could bleed down to that zone there. And I'm not sure if we'll necessarily get it. It's hard to say, but this cluster down here, if we manage to get this essentially then becomes a triple tap like we have on CRV, but on a much, much larger scale. So in this case, it means that HBAR remains relatively sideways or dormant for another couple of months. Everyone once again writes HBAR off and thinks that the pump has been faded and the pump was an exit pump, as people like to say, when really in reality, all we're doing is making a massive, massive base to absolutely explode to the upside when the time is right. So again, this is the Bitcoin pairing. On the USD pairing, if we get a bit of a deeper pullback, areas of interest are the orange zone here at around 16 to 19 cents. That's the last area of demand before this spike to the upside. Anyways, my point is that HBAR may need some more time to consolidate. The fact that it's trading above the monthly resistance on the USD pairing is a bullish sign, but we want to see that confluence in both the Bitcoin and the USD pairing, because if we don't get that confluence, then it could imply that we just have a bit of a deeper pullback or some more chop before we're ready for the next aggressive move to the upside. So that's HBAR. Bottom line is it looks good. I think there's a chance we'll get a deeper dip on HBAR than something like CRV or XRP. So for those that are looking for an entry, you may still get a bit of a better entry here on HBAR. Anything under 20 cents I think is a fantastic buy. Currently trading at 30 cents. So anything under 20 I think is great. And if we manage to get this sort of confluence, if the Bitcoin pairing manages to reject here and manages to bleed down, your first big area of interest, wherever the USD pairing is at this time, is going to be this cluster here. And if we manage to get to this green zone here, back up the truck. That's what I'll be doing. If we manage to get down to here, I'll be loading up like crazy if we manage to get that on the Bitcoin pairing, regardless of where the USD pairing is at. So just for some context, if we get down here and Bitcoin's trading at, let's say, 150K, then it gives us an HBAR price of 15 cents at this ratio. If we get down here and Bitcoin's trading at 100K, it gives us a ratio of 10 cents on HBAR. So again, that's why I said HBAR, I don't really see it going down to like 8 cents, because for that to happen, the HBAR Bitcoin pairing would need to be at that green zone, and Bitcoin would have to be at $80,000. And I think Bitcoin's probably not going to stay down here for much longer unless we get that larger pullback to 70Ks. So more realistically, if we get down here, Bitcoin will probably be at 100, 150K, maybe higher. And that'll give us an HBAR price of 10 to 15 cents. This is the sweet spot if we manage to get it. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.